This Matt guy really likes to trade all the good players, doesn't he? This video is a hypothetical. This is kind of a disclaimer. This video is a hypothetical. I am not saying that the Sabres should trade Jack Eichel. Let me say that again. I am not saying the Sabres right now should trade Jack Eichel. That's not what this video is about. This video is talking about asset management, and I like to talk about like big picture hypotheticals. I think it's fun. I think it's barroom sort of discussions that we would have had if bars even existed anymore. We might have had this conversation. I think it does the thing that sports fans like the most about being a fan, and that's putting yourself in the shoes of the decision makers of the team that you support, and trying to think about like what you would do in those situations. That's what this is. I want to talk about trading star players because I think it's interesting, and I think it's something that isn't thought about on a deep level because nobody wants to trade their star players. And when you have this conversation with someone, inevitably, the thing that's going to come out of their mouth, probably the first thing that's going to come out of their mouth is, you know you're never going to win that trade, right? Anytime there's like an answer to something that's so quick like that, it really gets me thinking, like, is that just a reflex? Are we even thinking about this anymore? That seems like a reflex to me. And we're trying to sound smart. Let's really think about this. Let's like take this and look at it from a different angle and try to figure out if that is true. Trading star players. If we look through the history of it, what teams do when they trade star players, like we saw with Tyler Seguin or Joe Thornton, Rick Nash, Thomas Vanek, if you want it, Ryan O'Reilly, the teams that were getting rid of their star players sold their star player for a bunch of assets. That's what they did. That is the status quo. That's what GMs do. I think maybe they do it because they know that they're in a bad spot. And if this is what people expect, I'm not going to get crucified for making this move. But the reason why we think so, we don't think so highly about a move like that is it's a move that is based on hope, and there is also time involved that creates a situation where it's going to be really hard for you to win that. The planets would have to align perfectly for you to win that trade. So in return, you're probably getting some roster players, one usually, maybe you get two. Those players are never going to be as good as the player that you got rid of. Those players are likely bottom six players, and you'll try to rationalize that as a fan saying, this makes the roster stronger. We need to have a good bottom six that will help the top six. Some sort of like backwards logic is what we'll use to try to make ourselves feel good about the trade. So really, those throw-ins, which may just be like sort of cap sort of stuff to facilitate the trade. Those players, they're garbage throw-ins. It doesn't really matter. The major parts of the deal are the futures: prospect, first round pick. Hopefully both. Probably sometimes only one of them, but that's what you're hoping on. Those exactly, and that's what the word is. It's you're hoping those work out for you. Now you have to factor in time. It takes time for those players to develop. Maybe they come in and play in the NHL next year. Odds are they are not going to be as good as the player that you just got rid of. I think it's safe to say maybe in 3 years, a player is starting to really form themselves into what they are as an NHLer. And in 3 years' time, are you, the GM, going to have the job? What is your team going to look like? Is like that's a long time in the world of sports. So you add all of that stuff together, and I think that that's why we think trading a star player is always destined to fail. So what if you do the opposite of that? What if you buy with your star player rather than trade? So you take your star player, in this case Jack Eichel, you add a first-round pick, which is a huge piece of currency in the league. It's what they use at the trade deadline to maybe get a piece for a playoff run. It's a gigantic piece. in anyone's organization is their first round pick. You add that to it and you say, is there a situation somewhere where we can buy a player and have that player fill the void right now, right away? If you want to add even more to it, if you want to add a prospect to it, fine. But we're trying to get something that helps us now. And I think that's the first avenue teams should go down. They should exhaust all their options with those sorts of players before they open up the auction block and say, okay, someone give me their best package deal for my guy. The player that I think in this sort of situation that would work as a return for Jack Eichel would be Matt Barzal. I think a lot of people would have guessed that that's the player that I was going to choose because it's a player often linked, oddly enough, to Jack. There's always debate on whether or not they're on sort of like the same tier of player. They're from the same draft class. Barzal is a legitimate number one center. Barzal is a great dynamic skater. There's a lot of parallels there. So that's the player I picked. Now, Barzal did not sign a long-term extension with the Islanders. The Islanders decided that they were going to sign him to a very lucrative bridge deal that carries average annual value of $7 million. Barzal will then end up being a restricted free agent again, which is somewhat of a win for that the Islanders are probably thinking is a win on their end. But I'm starting to think that that deal where you end up still as a restricted free agent and you're hitting arbitration where you're going to get a gigantic arbitration award, more than likely, is the NHL's equivalent to the franchise tag. They don't have a franchise tag, but they're like, we got one more year. We're going to pay you a ton of money. You're going to come play, and whatever happens after that is what happens. You'll probably end up hitting unrestricted free agency. You're probably going to end up traded at some point, but that's what's going to happen. So the Islanders are probably looking at a player, if they're smart, and saying, I don't know how much of a future we have with him. Like, yes, he's here now. Yes, he's here for a couple more years, but we don't have a long-term deal in place for him. So why would they want Jack Eichel? Jack Eichel, from the Islanders' perspective, is absolutely, without a doubt, a player that they would say is as good as Matt Barzal. If we lose Matt Barzal, we have Jack Eichel. He's as good as Barzal. And we're getting a first-round pick on top of it. And I would even go as far as to have that pick be unprotected, which everyone's going to go crazy about because, oh my God, that could end up being blah, 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 blah. Yeah, okay, yeah, I understand the risk in that, but I'm trying to do something here. So I would even do that, and I would say, here you go. And I think that they would look at it and say, I'm getting a player who's as good as the player I'm giving up, and I'm getting a first-round pick. Seems good to me. I'm getting also contract certainty too on top of it. Cool. Sign me up. And I think that that's what they would say. Now, from the Sabres' perspective, why would they want to do this? Jack Eichel says, hey, I'm out of here. Trade me, please. I need to get out of here. I'm done running in place. At this point, at the 7th year of my career, I'm ready to win. I can't do it here. Please do this. So you get a player who doesn't want to play for you anymore at the most important position in hockey. That void is being created. You need to fill that. You're not going to do that with a first-round pick, not right away. Adding Barzal right now, right away, is a way to continue to progress in the manner that you're doing right now, as if Jack stayed is what it does. So you're not falling back at all. You're continuing to press forward. And I think what it would do is it would allow you to, like I said, it would allow you to keep building rather than rebuilding. You just went down a different path. You got a comparable player, and that player then is, and Dylan Cousins hopefully is how you would then flesh out the rest of your roster. And then you will have to worry about signing a long-term deal with Matt Barzal at the end of his bridge deal, but you have something that the Islanders don't have, and that's an owner that is willing to pay more money. So odds are you'll be able to sign him, and Barzal will not come in with, the years and years and years and years of losing like Jack has in a Sabres uniform. It might be a fresh start for him as well. So that's my take on trading good players. I'd love to hear your comments about it, and I appreciate you taking the time to watch this video.